Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Glory be to the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, now and ever, and unto the ages of all ages, amen. I can't tell you all how happy I am to be here, and how much I really believe in what you all are part of and what you all are doing. Jesus' final commandment to us is to go. And a lot of us will not participate in a mission trip, will not go out of our comfort zone, will not reach out to those who may or may not know the Lord Jesus Christ or may not know him the way we know him. And oftentimes we say we haven't been called. It's really sad because we have been called. Jesus has called all of us. The call to the majority is to go. The call to the few is to stay. And this is something that is just on being revived in the world all around. And there's always a reluctance towards missions because there's always a reluctance to go out because we're so comfortable in our comfort zone. So it makes me so happy to see so many of you who are willing to take something so precious like your vacation time or the very little time that you have to spend with family or with friends and to go out and to serve the Lord. I can't thank you enough for that, and all I can say is I'm proud. I'm really proud to be here and humbled to be amongst you. So the theme for the conference is Romans 12:2, which can really easily be divided into two parts, and so that's what we're going to do. We're going to do one talk and then followed by another. There's a constant pressure for us to conform, to go along with the societal norms, behaviors of any group of people, to follow their opinions, to do what everyone else is doing. The reason for conformity is very simple. I mean, all of these things are so innate to us. They're so ingrained in us that maybe they're not things that you stop to think about. To be honest with you, I didn't stop to think about them until I was trying to read and research and learn something new so I could share something new with you. The reason we conform is so that we can have organized society. Conformity allows us to have predictable behaviors. So if everybody is just going to do whatever they want, or everybody's just going to do whatever they think to seem to be right at any given moment, you have chaos. For example, you have a schedule for the conference. You registered for the conference, you paid for the conference, you came to the conference, you went to the registration desk, they gave you a schedule. When they gave you that schedule, you actually have the choice to do whatever you want. Much to the dismay of George and the other organizers, you don't have to follow the schedule. You can do whatever you want. You can show up whenever you want. You can leave whenever you want. You can do anything, right? Just because there's a schedule there doesn't mean you have to follow it. But we won't have a conference. We won't confer. We won't convene. We won't have a convention. There will be a divergence of human beings if everybody just kind of does whatever they want randomly. So it makes sense. It makes sense that there's a certain degree of conformity in culture, and there's a certain degree of conformity in society, right? And the whole idea of conformity and conformism in the workplace especially, but elsewhere in society, societal norms and so on, is so that you can have predictable behavior. You are fully expecting that when your light turns green and the light turns red for the next guy, that you are safe to go. If somebody decides to not conform all of a sudden, right, you're going to get T-boned, right? And that's bad, right? So conformity is not necessarily a bad thing, but we have to ask ourselves, to what are we conforming? We have to take the whole statement. Do not be conformed to this world, right? And we're going to talk a lot more about being conformed to a heavenly society. In the workplace, conformity is really a means of keeping the status quo. In fact, there's lots of literature talking about nonconformity as the way that the greatest businesses grow. We'll get to some of that. I want to share with you a story before we go deeper and deeper into this. So my first rotation ever was like before clerkship. I was one of those eager beavers who spent my summer between Med 2 and Med 3 at doing a rotation in what I thought that I would want to do, which was pediatric surgery, which is what I ended up doing later. And I realized something a day or two into my rotation. Despite the fact that I was working with one of the most innovative pediatric surgeons in the world, I realized something, that my ideas were not welcome. Every time we would be like struggling, so I'd say, well, wow, why don't we try this? Or how about if we try that? Now, I understand it's very presumptuous of the Med 2, not yet even Med 3, to be telling this world-renowned pediatric surgeon maybe what he should do, right? Very quickly, I learned that a small dose of humility goes a long way. But I learned through the rest of my medical career something else, that new ideas are not necessarily welcome, particularly in very old professions like medicine. What did go a long way for getting me reference letters and helping me jump through hoops and get positions and work with great people and be productive in the lab and elsewhere is just doing what I'm told. Doing it faster than anyone else, harder than anyone else, more than anyone else, etc. Earlier than anyone else in surgery. That's what I learned. And it stuck with me. And towards the end of my training, when I wanted to start finding new ideas, can I tell you something really sad? I had difficulty. I had difficulty reviving that innocent, naive John who one day was suggesting new ideas to the seasoned pediatric surgeon. The biggest problem with conformity is kind of like the biggest problem we have fitting into those jeans. Or for me, it just snowed for the first time in Toronto, so I brought out my big winter coat, right? And here I was realizing that I was just about an inch away from being able to actually close it, right? A winter coat in sub-zero weather is not very helpful if you can't close it, right? So here I was trying to squeeze myself into this coat, and I think we've all had experiences of that with varying different articles of clothing. The problem with conformity is you're trying to fit someone unique, someone special, someone whom God has created to be just themselves into a mold that isn't them. That's what conformity is. It's taking the outward shape. It's taking the outward shape of something else, right? It's kind of like a body swap. When I was a kid, I would pretend that I wasn't me and that I was doing things, and then these pretends would turn into lies, and then these lies would grow, and I would always get caught because I'm a very bad liar, right? So right off the bat, one of the first things I told my wife when we were planning our wedding is, I'm a really bad liar, right? If I lie, you will know that I'm lying, and I know I'm a really bad liar, so I will probably never lie to you. You can ask her when you meet her if I've stayed true to my word. The most common reason kids get bullied in school is not actually because they're funny looking or because they're different or because all of those things. It's not because the things that are being said about them are true, not usually anyways. The most common reason kids get bullied at school is because they're trying to be friends with people that don't want to be their friends. They're trying to fit in with people that don't want to be with them. So those people, when they have an innocent bystander, what do? They make fun of them, right? And that's how bullying happens. Most bullying can be cured with very simple avoidance, right? It's all of this trying to fit into something that I'm not, trying to be somebody that I'm not. And all of this begs the question of what my true identity is. Going back to the workplace and to like all the psychology and the workplace kind of stuff, conformity has been demonstrated to decrease engagement, decrease productivity, and decrease innovation. And I was going to present like a whole bunch of slides with research on all this stuff, and then I realized that you all are experts probably at internet research, and you can find all this stuff for yourselves. What you will probably want from me is what does heaven have to say about this? What does God have to say about this? For those of us who are in leadership positions, it helps for us to really look at this and to really remember that allowing some nonconformity in the workplace, empowering the dissenters, the people who don't always agree, empowering them to speak, asking them to be the first person to speak in a meeting helps a lot. With a lot of the evangelism stuff that we do, not in the third world, or nor in the slums of the inner city, but amongst business people and professionals and so on, we do these dinner discussion series. And one of the elements of the dinner discussion series is discussion. And the thing that makes discussion work the best, you know what it is? Well, it's a discussion leader who actually wants to listen. But the second most helpful thing in leading a discussion is actually to get the person who's most likely to disagree with you to speak first. And to listen to what they have to say and to accept it. Doesn't mean you agree with it, but you accept it. So we do this talk called Who is Jesus? And we get people from all different walks of life. And we spend about 20 minutes presenting historical proof that Jesus of Nazareth, a man, lived in the first century, and he died, and whether he rose from the dead and all of this, that stuff is a little bit more difficult to bring historical proof to, but we present all of this historical proof. I kid you not, at every discussion table, there's one person who says, I'm not really sure if this guy Jesus ever existed. Maybe he was just, maybe it's just all made up. And you're thinking to yourself, really? Come on now. We just presented 20 minutes worth of historical evidence, not from Christian sources, that there's a man named Jesus of Nazareth that lived. That's it. I'm not saying he's God. I'm not saying he rose from the dead. I'm just saying we train all of our discussion hosts that statement is going to come. And when it comes, you just say, that's very interesting. I've never heard of that before. Tell me more about that. If you don't have glasses that you can take off and stick in your mouth, get some. You're going to need to stick something in your mouth. Right? People say the funniest things, right? But if we don't attack them, if we empower them, right? That empowers discussion. Accepting things that everyone knows you don't believe empowers people to say what they really mean. And that is the first step in building bridges, and that's the first step in building trust and building friendships. All of that has a place in the workplace. Any of you out there who are leaders, read about this stuff. It's a pain in the butt. It's a pain in the butt to have a whole crew of people who don't agree with you. But you know what? It makes your organization that much richer. And we all who are under leadership, if we can do this with humility, have the power to enrich our organizations in the same way. In Romans chapter 8, St. Paul reminds us, you have not received a spirit of slavery leading to fear again, but have received a spirit of adoption as sons, which we cry out, Father. Before we start talking about conformity and about trying to fit in those skinny jeans and about how we're trying to fit into a shape that may or may not belong to us, let's pause for a second and see what is it that we're trying to fit into. Not the shape, not the bottle we're trying to fit into. What is it that we're trying to stuff in the bottle? Who are you? What is your identity? Where do you belong? There's nothing in the universe more empowering than feeling loved. There were two disciples. Jesus had many disciples, but let's talk about two of them. Not that I'm anybody to talk about anybody at all, but two disciples. One of them says to Jesus, I love you more than all of these. I will follow you wherever you go. In the courtyard of the high priest, he denies him. His name is Peter. Another disciple describes himself as the one whom Jesus loved. He followed Jesus to the cross. His name is John. St. Peter, of course, repents and is, an amazing saint. But the point is this: there's nothing in the universe more empowering than feeling loved. If you've ever been in an oppressive relationship or an oppressive workplace or you've been persecuted or you've had difficult times, there's nothing that keeps you going through that than knowing and feeling loved. Loved by other people, loved by family, loved by your children, your spouse, your whoever, but most of all, loved by God. And folks, not to be morbid or anything, but like a very sad reality is that if we identify ourselves by anything other than our relationship to God, it's temporary. 5 years ago, I was a surgeon. Now I'm a priest. Maybe one day I'll retire and, become an artist or a retiree or whatever, right? I don't know. They haven't quite worked retirement into priesthood yet. When people tell me, why did you switch careers? I thought most people switch careers 3 or 4 times in a lifetime. That was my first career change. My close friends pat me on the shoulder and tell me, and you're last. You're kidding yourself. But let's be serious, right, for a moment. I'm a husband. Well, what if God decides to take the love of my life one day to heaven? And he takes her home. Isn't that where she's going? Isn't that where she belongs? She certainly deserves better than me. What if he takes her home to heaven? I won't be a husband anymore. I'll be a widower. Well, I'm a father. What if my daughter makes me the proudest father in the world and preaches the gospel successfully in nations that are hostile to it and is martyred? Will I still be a father? In a certain sense. You see, all of these things that seem so real, so tangible, so like you can hold them, they're not. Like, life is but like steam, smoke. Here one day, gone tomorrow. My only real and true identity is that I am a beloved child of God. I am a beloved child of God. I'll tell you something, the series isn't about identity, but I've done many conferences about identity. Every single time I catch myself saying, I am so great, or I am so stupid, or I am a priest, or I correct myself and I say, I am a beloved child of God. I am a beloved child of God. I probably say that to myself 1,000 times a day, and it isn't enough, because I'm still saying I am other things. And none of those other statements are completely true, or at least none of them are as true as that I am a beloved child of God. I'm loved by God, and I am his son. And I can hold his hand, and I can reach out to him at any moment of time. Some of that is going to fit into the skinny jeans of this world that this world wants you to conform into. And some of it is not. And if I indeed am a beloved child of God, then my citizenship is in heaven. I belong in heaven. That's where I belong. That's where I fit in. It's okay if I don't fit in here. I fit in there. The problem is when I dissociate myself from heaven. The problem is when I lose my ties there. No ambassador goes overseas and starts building an empire for himself where he is. That's called treason, right? No temporary worker is sent somewhere to go work there and starts buying real estate or, St. John Chrysostom, very honest, he says, you know why no one believes your gospel? He's saying this in the 4th and 5th century, 5th century. It's funny like how relevant it is today. He says, you know why nobody believes your gospel? Because you're telling people to follow the man who says, lay up treasures for yourselves in heaven. And they can hear the workmen building palaces for you behind you. People are like confused, like they don't understand. Like, I thought you said, lay up your treasures in heaven, but you're building. My citizenship is in heaven. If I feel like I don't belong, that's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, that may very well be a sign I'm on the right path.